Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We are here with Nathan, Romeo himself.
Hello.
So just to get to know you a little bit better, did you study the play in school and what did you think of it?
I did study the play in school. It was a long time ago. So I think I studied it in my GCSE year. And I remember it was a time when there was the Baz Luhrmann version of it. So we all watched the film, which we found very exciting because they'd sort of swapped swords with guns and they were wearing like Hawaiian shirts and everything was quite cool. I thought it was a really amazing play. And because I think at the time it dealt with children of my age, teenagers that were going through something that I suppose not as drastically as them, but I was probably going through those sort of teenage feelings at that time as well, and I think it resonated somewhere with me.
And I guess as well, like with Romeo and Juliet, there is that friendship, like you say, but there's also kind of the feeling of like loneliness sometimes as well, because traditionally, like Romeo doesn't really tell Benvolio or Mercutio what's going on. I don't think.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's quite isolated in the way he feels. I think as well because everything happens quite quickly. He meets her, wants to marry her, and then he's sort of on his way to tell the boys. I would say he's on his way to tell the boys when Tybalt comes, and then that whole exchange happens, and they get in the fight, and then two of them end up dying at that point. But I do think prior to the play starting, he's quite isolated because he's sort of in his woes about Rosaline. He's not giving back the love he's giving her. So yeah, I think he feels quite lonely in the whole thing, in the whole play actually, yeah.
And have you worked at the Globe before?
No, I've never worked at the Globe. I've been to the Globe to see shows. I never went there as a kid to see a show, which is a shame. I would have liked to. So you guys are lucky. The only time I actually went was I didn't think I went till I was about in my 20s. But when I was at drama school, we had an exercise there, like a workshop there that we did with one of the voice tech teachers there. We got a chance to do a Shakespeare speech on the stage. So that was my first experience of being on the Globe stage, but no, this is my first time working there.
And what do you think that's going to be like, the challenges of that space maybe?
I think it's going to be an amazing experience. In terms of challenges, I think vocally filling the space is going to be a challenge. Making sure that I engage with the audience all over the space, because obviously sightlines and things like that, you want to make sure people can see you everywhere. And you just want to be able to take everyone in and give everyone the same quality of performance that everyone else is getting.
And can you take us through what you've been up to in week one?
Okay, so week one, day one, we came in and we did a thing called a meet and greet, where you meet everyone at the Globe, which is really it's nerve-wracking actually. On the first day, I was really nervous. It's like the first day of school. And so you do that, but you warm into it and it's nice, and everyone has a cup of tea and you talk, and then everyone introduces themselves, and then everyone leaves, and the cast and the crew are left, and the director, and we sit around and we talk a bit about the play, and then we do a read-through, which is everyone just sat around and reading their lines from the script. And then we had lunch, which was lovely, and then we came back and we had a dance rehearsal actually, because there's going to be a jig. So we were taught a dance, which was a great icebreaker for the first day.
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
Yeah. And so we were all just thrown into it, and we got on with it and did it. And then we did a Heaven to Hell tour. So we walked around the Globe and saw the entirety of the Globe, backstage, upstage, downstage, underneath the stage, around the stage, everywhere.
Adjacent to the stage.
Adjacent to the stage. And then we went on the stage and we did a workshop with Glyn, which was amazing. And then the next day, day two, which was yesterday, we came in and we've been doing table work. So we've been sat around the table discussing the play, discussing our characters, discussing language. But in the morning we had a really good session with Christine on text, so we can all understand what we're saying, because Shakespeare's very hard. But yeah, that's it so far.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And had you done much Shakespeare on stage before this?
I'd only ever done it once on stage. When I was at drama school, I played Shylock in The Merchant of Venice, which is a great play. That's the only time I've done Shakespeare on stage. Again, it was a challenge. I've always been, my entire life, I've been quite scared of Shakespeare as an actor. Yeah, I think a lot of people are, because it's daunting. It's a language people don't speak in anymore. Especially my upbringing, I never read Shakespeare. I didn't even read that many books as a kid. Yeah, so it was quite daunting. My only experience of it really was at school, and even then it wasn't much. So yeah, it's quite a daunting thing, but it's really exciting when you start to get to know it and you understand it and you realise you're capable of doing it like everyone else is. I think that's a really enlightening thing to know, is that no matter who you are, you really can, just by putting a little bit of work in, reading it more than once maybe. My thing is I have to read a Shakespeare play maybe 4 or 5 times before I really understand it. So I think, yeah, just knowing that if you put a little bit of work in, you're as capable as everyone else.
And add to the read through, that's another 5th time yesterday.
Yeah, so that I'm
Gonna keep
like, I think I'm like on 6 or 7
Yep.
now, so I'm starting to get to know it.
Oh, bro. Well, thanks so much for chatting to us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
We'll catch up with you in a few weeks, find out how many more times you've read the play.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll probably be on
Be
like
in there.
21 by then.